Hello, everyone out there in Cyberland, and excuse this recorded session of Love Speaks. We could not get our Zoom onto live stream on Facebook. It just would not, Facebook wouldn't allow it somehow. So anyway, we gave up and we're recording and we're here with you now. So thank you for joining us. And thank you also for all those who were interested in coming in to the live. That was really lovely. And I feel things are starting to grow a wee bit in respect to the audience. So it's a really good thing. And if you guys can all share this afterwards, that helps the algorithms too for us to get more and more people coming in. Because your conversation in this is important to us as well. And I love it when you all start getting in on the conversation and I can bring you into that. So, yeah, keep it up for us. That'll be great. So hi, Bev, and hi, Claudia, again.
Hey, Mandy. Nice
Hi, Mandy.
to be back
Hi,
again.
Yeah.
I love our talks on Tuesday. Well, it's Wednesday today.
It is, because
Yeah.
I had no power at this house yesterday. They cut power off, so I thought it'd be easy just to flick it into today, which is good, but we'll be back to Tuesdays as normal from here on. So yes, today's topic is grief, and I know, you know, for myself, just looking at the world and everything that's going on out there, there's a lot of grief, a lot of grief, and this planet is being basically, I don't know, there's a big overlay of grief energy everywhere. So that is our topic today. And I think, you know, for like when I look at what's going on right now, we're in a time of death. There's so much dying off, you know, in all things. The society's changing so much, and there's a lot that's dying off in there. A lot of the old programs, as you know, the patterning and so much stuff. So I feel for most of humanity, I think there's a lot of grief around their old life, you know, the old life that we thought we were really happy in. Which changed over the last 3 years. It's like taken a flip, and so many different things have popped up for people, not just in losing loved ones and the separation and segregation that came about from being in, you know, with the government proposals and mandates and all the stuff around COVID. We were very much separated and segregated up into compartments, and that created a lot of grief too for a lot of people. Now we've got all the, you know, the vaccination issues that are going on, a lot of death and a lot of you know, unhealthy people. Now we've got lots of illnesses and going on, and a lot of people are just dropping dead from it, as we know. And I know a lot of people out there won't know that because they're not looking at the right information and things are being hidden. And that again is another grief state, I feel, because we who know about this are feeling frustrated, and definitely grief around all of those who are just not hearing it, not seeing it, and carrying on into what we know is harmful for them. Huge. It's huge.
Yeah, and because some people will be feeling a lot of anger or a lot of rage, but under that is the grief.
Yes.
It's like the rage and the anger hide the grief.
Yeah.
So actually releasing our grief is a way of clearing that.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's not always easy to get to that place.
Yeah,
No.
You know, it's like we just we'll stay in the anger, or because it's more acceptable.
more acceptable. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Society finds it very difficult to express grief. We're not taught. We're taught to stuff it down. And not, you know, I watched a movie last night actually where an Italian woman's her son died, and in Italy when somebody dies, they have a thing called luto, which is when they grieve. It is a time of coming together of the family after the funeral. And this woman in the movie, she was wailing and she was crying, and her emotions were just spewing out of her. And it was quite uncomfortable to watch because, of course, you know, we don't see that very often. But it was, I really believe that allowing that emotion to come out is our body's way of releasing it. It's like all that pent up. You know,
and if we don't do the releasing, then it accumulates. When you were talking about that, I was reminded of being at my sister's funeral, and yes, people had cried, but nobody had actually wailed. And being a sensitive, I could feel it. It was like building in the church until this wail came out of me. Like, it was huge. And of course, shocked my family because they're not used to anything like that. But it was one of the things that being married to a Maori and learning about funerals there, what really helped me to appreciate that you can just let go and cry or wail. The wail that I let out was like, I felt it was like this big ball sat in my heart that just exploded. I had absolutely no control over it, but I do know that I was picking up from everybody else as well, because nobody, and I've been known as the crybaby in our family, because I cry quite often. And I'm not ashamed of that anymore, whereas before I used to be ashamed of it and tried to stuff it down and hold it all together, and now I just put tissues in my pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too. I'm a crier, always have been, and it is a good thing. And I know even with that, in the sense of tears, sometimes it's still not actually releasing all of it either. And there's more that we need to do, and that often is about conversation. That we need to, allow the speaking of it.
Yeah. And we're not very often allowed to speak about how we feel, because it sometimes just really upsets other people. I actually have had a lot of grief in my life, and just the other day I needed to speak out my feelings, however uncomfortable it was for me and the person I was speaking to. It just had to happen, and I just surrender. I surrender to not holding this resentment inside of me any longer, and I'm just going to say all the things that I've been holding in for 30 odd years. It just needs to come out. And it's like this weight got lifted off me. It was amazing. Because I got to speak all those things that just went on and on and on in my head whenever I thought about that situation.
And that's the thing, we'll just carry it around in the head forever. And, 30 years later, you're still having the argument that you wanted to have with that person, 30 years ago. And it's like,
and it didn't matter how many times I expressed it to somebody else, how I was feeling, having a healing session or whatever, I had to speak it to that person that was involved. And there's that little saying that says, holding resentment is like somebody having free rent in your head. Well, I think the free rent was all through my body because of the relief that I felt was not just in my mind.
So letting go of all that resentment by expressing it would have freed up all that space inside you.
It has. Yeah. Yes, and I met a lady a couple of days later who is quite good at seeing energy, and she goes, "Whoa, you look lighter."
Cool. Yeah.
I just did a whole heap of work, and yeah, did felt
Mm,
much better.
yeah,
Mm.
it does. Yes, there's so much going on in the sense of grief. Like, really, there's just so many things. And, talking about the old life, what we thought was the life that we were happy in and all of that until maybe 3 years ago when it started sort of breaking down a bit and, making us look at it all. And lots of people changed their lifestyles over that time, new things, but we're programmed to actually expect pain and hardship and struggle, and that something was going to come along and just rip all the good stuff away. We've had that expectation bred into us every time we birthed in. And I just feel that this is like we're at a really critical point in being able to shift all of that and start actually creating the worlds like we know, the way we want them to be or how we wish it to be, and more unified and harmonious and all those things. But on a personal level, it's more of that stepping away from the old emotional human perception of what loss is, of what grief is, even of all of those types of emotions. And really, I know when, like, as an example with Dad passing in April, I just kept staying in my higher perspective and knowing, because we weren't allowed to be with him because, there was COVID, and he passed on his own, basically, with a couple of staff from the rest home. And that was hard for me to take at the time. And I know I got in my car after I left there, not being allowed to, and after standing in the garden looking at him in his room for hours and then thinking, this is just ridiculous. Like, I felt silly in the end. It was like a bit embarrassing. And I just got in my car and I screamed, basically all the way home, which is 45-minute drive. And I just kept allowing that grief to just and it was more than not being able to be there with him, which again was fine. And because in the higher perspective for me, I knew my soul essence was with him. He knew that too. So I didn't actually need to go into all the grief, but because I'm human, as we all are, and I had a lifetime with him as a child, that as being his daughter, that was what I was grieving. I was grieving the passing of that time and that I will never have that again.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, was the deepest grief part for me, because he knew I was there, I knew I was there, and everything was sweet, So it's hard to stay out of, and we're not meant to, I don't think, completely stay out of our human emotion.
No.
We're not going to get to a point. No.
Isn't that why we came to Earth, to experience all the emotions?
Yeah. It's not
I certainly know that in the last 30 years I've experienced every emotion that's absolutely possible.
We can try and suppress it, but it only gets suppressed for so long. Like it comes out in other ways.
Yes.
It's not really.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's not really like, feasible to think that you can't feel, because you might not want to feel it. You might be trying not to feel it and suppressing it, but it'll come out somehow in disease or mental illness or, whatever, however it wishes to present itself in your life.
Depression.
Yeah.
Depression is another one.
Absolutely.
And how much depression do we have all around the world? Like, if the medication that they hand out for depression is just phenomenal, really. I'm so surprised at how many people are taking antidepressants. I'm like, really? And that's what, because it takes so much of our energy to hold our emotions down.
Yeah.
You know, if we can express them in the moment, they don't build up. But when we've got all of that emotion, we've just got to use all of our energy just to hold it in. And, you know, that's why having a healing session is good, because there's a whole heap of energy that a healer brings that helps to release that emotion.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure if I hadn't have discovered working with energy, I would probably be one of those on antidepressants, because I can get into the depressive state. I just know that if I really look, what is it that I'm holding in? It lifts me back up out of that state.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, when I start to feel myself going down that rabbit hole of depression, or you know, grief, or whatever it is that's taking me there, I kind of try and put perspective around it, and like move out of that state, and like you were saying, Mandy, get to the higher realms of the feelings of it. And I kind of like talk to myself like a soothing mother would, and rock myself in that kindness and understanding until I can start looking at things differently and feeling things in a more positive way, because it's an emotion that passes, you know. Emotions come and go, and you can get stuck in an emotion. You can get completely stuck there, or you can allow yourself to transition through. And I'm always telling myself, this is a temporary situation. You know, there's going to come a time when you feel differently. And when I remember that, I can, the feelings start to flow, and I start to allow it to come, and it passes. It kind of comes through and it passes. So it always passes. It always does. I mean, when you're in it, it's horrible, because, you know, you're feeling it and it's yucky, but it never, you know, I never allow myself to just live there. I allow it to pass through.
Yeah. I think I've never allowed anything to really take me out, if you know what I mean. So I can go so far, and then it's like I know that if I went any further, I would maybe not come out of it. So it's like I allow the wallow, if we want to put it like that, to be able to work through the emotional space. But there's a part of me that just clicks in and goes, you're not doing this shit. You know, you're not going there. You're not going there. There's no need to go there. So because when I do, I know I'm being in a victim state. You know, I've been victimized in some way, or I feel like I have, and it's just all a story.
Yeah, exactly. It's a story. We allow ourselves to be victimized until we say, okay, this is a choice now. Like I can choose to start to see the first step out of the pit, you know, take that first step. And sometimes that first step is so hard and so exhausting that it's the only one you can take in, you know, however many days or however many hours or whatever it takes you. And then you can sit on that step until you've got the energy to go the next step. And that has always been, because if I look at the staircase and I think, oh gosh, I've got to take all these stairs to get out of the pit, I'll lose hope, and I'll be like, oh, I'm never going to do that. But when I just look at the first step and I allow myself to sit and rest, and then I know the energy will come to take the next step when I'm ready. But each phase of that, I'm there for myself, cradling my feelings and allowing them, and telling myself it's okay, you will take the next step when you're ready. You know, I think it's really important to be your own advocate when this is happening, you know, and feeling so low. I mean, Juliet's moved out. She moved out of home a few days ago, and the house is very different. Like you were saying, Mandy, everything's changing. And our house is the energy in our house is very different, and it's a matter of getting used to it now and creating a new paradise, a new beautiful energy here without her. And it's having to recalibrate everything and feel the sadness that she's gone, but know that we're going to be okay. It's all going to be okay, and that we'll get through this and we'll work it out, and we'll still have happy memories in the house. And that sort of thing. So,
because energetically, when you think about, Julie, it's quite a big energy, and she would have taken up a lot of that energy in your home. So of course now she's gone, it's about filling you up more. And filling the house more with your energy, rather than, you've probably sat back a little bit. Now she's gone, that sort of, it'll open up more for you in a sense.
Yeah, and looking at it from a positive perspective, not just the negative that, there's something missing, because of course she's gone and her energy is not as strong here. She's still here. I mean, I'm in her room. I mean, look at it. It's beautiful. But it's about thinking, okay, what do I want to create in this space now that her energy isn't as strong here? And being mindful of that, and being, in the heart space of creating something that's just as beautiful. It may be different, but it can be just as beautiful.
Yeah.
You know what I just got, Claudia, was that your energy can expand so much more. It's like you can take your space. We do. Like, I'm now living on my own, and I look, honestly, sometimes just having someone for a cup of tea is like, it brings my energy in. So it's like, it's like really being able to expand your own energy.
And trying to be excited by that, about what the future holds and how I can grow into that space in a way that is great for everybody and fantastic for me.
For sure. And that's the thing when, talking about like loved ones passing, they sort of say that, we give a part of our soul to that person. And then when they leave, it's a part of our soul that's also left. And so therefore there's that recoiling ourselves back from that. And that's when, in the writing on the script there that I had on the poster, advertising this talk, it was about how lost track. So we go giving, and reclaiming that part of soul and self that we have given to that person. And that love is, or the grief is love not knowing where to go anymore. So it had a direction to go to, it had a person and a destiny as such, destination, but it didn't, when they've gone, then what happens to that love that I was giving to that person? And that's, the saying is that that's what grief is, which I can get that. I think that's quite feasible, really.
Yeah, I resonate with that.
I think one of the things that I remember doing when I first started looking at my journey was actually pulling all of those aspects back to me. All the parts of my soul that were wandering around the universe that just needed to come home. And they needed to come home and tell their story, because some of those parts have been in grief for a long time. So it's like, pulling all of that back. It really helped me a lot.
It's big, that part of it, in this respect to this time now that we're in, and this journey, this lifetime is all about fragmentation. It's about bringing all the fragmented parts of ourselves from, like you say, all over the universes, and coming back to holding ourselves again, so that we become whole.
Yeah, so one of my thoughts had been like pulling all of those parts back is because we are anchoring, um, we're anchoring the light here on the planet, and we're
Mm,
anchoring it through ourself.
yeah,
And
yeah.
we're fragmented, we're out there
Got a
searching
strong
for
field,
something
eh?
all the time.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm. So it's
yeah.
like pulling ourselves back together. Um,
Mm,
yeah, it's an interesting journey.
it is. It
And,
is.
and of course, one of the other things is that the land holds so much grief too.
Mm, yeah.
Uh, yeah, so
Well,
I'm back here in Albany in WA, and I think Albany was the last place that they had a whaling station where they used to go kill the whales. And so in the bay here, no whales ever came. They just stayed out of here. Anyway, this it must have been maybe 15 years ago, before I went to live in New Zealand anyway. I did a little tiki tour around and went out to the whaling station, and it was pouring with rain. And I had to get out of the car, and this wail, like the wailing energy that came out of me, was so enormous. I don't know exactly how my body managed to hold that much in. The next week, there was a thing on the news saying the whales were back in the bay. Now, we don't always give it enough credit that we're picking up not just from other people in the unconscious, we're actually picking up from the land as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
absolutely.
yeah,
And when we do whatever it might be that's connecting with us, like not land, I mean, when we look at our emotional trip and then we go and process something, that is also being released from her
from
template and
her
her
body.
blueprint and
Yes,
her body, which
yeah,
is also helping, humanity and the planet. So it's not just us doing our bit in the sense of just it's just affecting us and those loved ones around us. Maybe it's actually a huge process, and
yeah,
that it's affecting everything and bringing it in more into equilibrium.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes. It's what the planet holds and what we hold in our bodies is a reflection.
It is.
Mm,
Oh, so
Yeah.
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yep. It's a yeah.
Mm,
And because she is releasing all her old stories, the same as us.
yeah.
And the journey that I've been on for the last, not today, but yesterday and the day before, was around releasing a whole heap of the story around when the white settlers came to Australia.
Mm,
So I think I did I don't know, 400 or 500 kilometres in the last 2 days,
yeah.
just going around to all the sites where we were directed to go to help to release that and to so that we can move on. Because
Yeah.
while that's still held, we can't raise our vibrations to the
Mm,
rate that we need to raise them to.
mm. Yeah, well, we're tethered in,
We're
aren't we?
tethered. Yes, that's the
Mm, you know,
word. We're
yes, so,
connected to those old stories until
we are.
we can release them. Mm.
Was
Yeah.
there any griefs around releasing those stories? Did you see any signs of the grieving of that, or was it a joyous thing?
Oh no, there was a lot of processing that went on to move that through.
Yeah, right.
Yes, so the woman that I was with, it was part of her story. So I was actually holding the energy for her to do that. I had my role in there too, of course, um, but that was mostly her story because she's one of the Aboriginal elders of this area, and so that her old story needed to be taken to a new level. so that the healing can happen. Like the healing has been traumatic for not just the Aboriginals, but for the whites as well. We've had that story's been embedded in the land here, and to release it. So it's work I love to do too. You know, it feels like my sole mission is to help others to release their old story.
Wow, that's massive.
Yeah, it's good. It's good stuff, though.
It is.
It is. It's a bit of fun.
It can be quite exciting as well.
Yeah, can be.
Yeah. So, so this woman said to me this morning. She said, "I just feel so much lighter because she's not carrying that story in her body any longer."
Yeah.
I think we could all do a bit of that, going around to different parts of our areas where different parts of our lives took place, to energetically release and forgive and all of that stuff, like to create room for our new story to come in, the future of our lives to manifest.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of that over the last, I don't know what, I've been here 8 months, because this is where I was born. So I've been to all the places I lived and had to release the trauma that happened here, because there was quite a lot. So it's been very interesting to be able to do that as well, and I feel like I'm coming into a whole new story of my own now.
That seems to be a lot of what's happened over the last few years too, is with those who are changing their lifestyles, their homes. They've shifted. A lot of people have shifted back to where they first came from. You know, to their hometowns and the people that they used to be around when they were younger, and old relationships that didn't take off in those teenage years have been rekindled. And you know, it's quite interesting how we've maybe done the circuit of having to do all that first and then come back to this, and now it's time to be able to create it, clean it up.
Yeah, we actually have a family member who that happened to. She got married and had children, and that marriage broke down, and she's come full circle back to an old flame of hers from her teenage years, and they're reconnected, and they're really happy together now. So that's happening everywhere.
So even though, you know, when we're getting those prompts to do something like shift home or shift somewhere or leave that job, or like Juliet, move away, you know, there's often, you know, we often look at what we're losing, and mostly we look at that and we hold on to the emotional space of that we've been there. And then when we look further out, it's like, well, if I look at what I'm going into, it's more about that, because we never really lose anyone or are separated from anyone. We are so all connected, and that for me has been really something that's shown up for me over the last couple of years, is that we are really connected. And if you look at how this world moved together in the lockdowns and in everything, even the spreading of the so-called virus, you saw how connected we all were. And how easy it was for that to spread so quickly, and how it was all just like we were all in the same space. And that was
really elevated, didn't it? That experience of staying connected, even though we're all in our own homes, we found ways to stay connected to each other. It really elevated during that time.
It did. It really did. But I think if people can see, you know, if we look at the bigger picture and see how we collectively created everything that we've just been through. We collectively created that as a consciousness. And so that's, if you know, that was a bit of a slap in the face when you look at it and you think, well, you know, I've been a part of that creation. Even though I might not have thought I was, because it was affecting me. I was in it. That was my world. That was sitting around me in that space. So therefore, you start seeing, you know, when we looked at all of that, it was like, well, the fear of what we thought was control, which is only given away. It can't be taken from you. It's only going to be given away. So we gave our power away. We gave the control and handed it over. And then this was an awakening on how we have collectively, consciously, all together, created a space where it's now showing us where we were handing ourselves away.
Oh.
And, you know, that there, I think, for people to see that as a mass conscious thing and how we are all very connected, and we all collectively created that, then it's, you know, go from there, switch the program, switch the vision, switch the, you know, which is happening. Everybody's doing that.
Yeah, because we were so, it was so much easier just to hand it over to someone else to look after, and now we've gone, actually, I think they're all corrupt.
We were, yes.
And the thing was, we actually knew they were corrupt, and we still let them do it.
We were just jogging by, you know. Oh yeah, I know it's there. It's not too bad. I can sort of work with that. It's all good.
Oh,
and then
really
it just got
me. I'll just keep going on my way. Yeah.
Yes. So you know, I just loved that we were stopped, and it was like, stop, look, and bloody listen, because if you don't,
we handed the responsibility over to somebody else instead of taking that responsibility for and being responsible for ourselves.
Yes. And that's what I see as being the mass grief on the planet. It's because of that. And yet it's all us. We've made that.
We created it.
You know, we don't actually need to grieve it because it was a shite thing anyway. We don't want to be a part of it. We don't want to live like that. So why are we grieving it? We actually don't need to.
I think we're grieving because we know that it was our choice. And when you wake up to that fact and you kind of go, like, how's that? Oh my God, like, why did I do that? Why did I, like, and then you start asking the questions, why did I do that? You know, how did this happen? How did I manifest this in my life? And then you start to look at yourself, and then you start to see those shadow aspects that you've been denying.
Yeah.
You've been saying, no, that's not me, that's not my fault.
Over there somewhere.
Yeah. And then you start to see that it's you and that you chose it and you manifested it and it is part of you. And then you kind of like you start to kind of go, oh, and that for me, I've been through that myself, and I've experienced a certain amount of grief over those things because I kind of was like, Claudia, why did you do that? You know? And now I'm seeing other people going through that same realization in their own lives. And I feel for them, like, because I know what it feels like. And it's like, I resonate with what you're going through because I went through it myself. And it's not really, I wouldn't call it grief as such. It's more like an empathy, but a sad empathy, you know, sadness that, you know, that it hurts. It's hurting that person, that they're having to wake up to that shadow side of themselves that they never knew was there, and it was operating in the background the whole time and was being denied. It's like it's a knowing, but it's like I'm really sorry. Like, I know how hard it is to realize that and to open your eyes to it and to start working through it and to embrace it and accept that it is part of who you are. I mean, that all needs to happen before we can go on to the next stage, which is now saying, I want to create something different for myself from a place of love, you know, from a place of awakeness and a place of awareness and a place of like happiness and abundance, you know. So that's what I think we're at that point now. I think people are starting to realise.
And I also feel like there's so many on the planet that have done that really deep work. And so that we created this pathway so it's actually easier for people to release what's going on. They don't have to go, it's not as difficult as it used to be.
Yeah.
No.
It's like
Okay.
it's way quicker. I remember it was only a couple of weeks ago I ran a workshop. I did a day workshop, and what they got through in 2 hours would normally have taken 2 days.
Yeah.
So the first 2 hours, I thought, oh, okay, we're done now. But there's always a little more. But the pathway was wide open, so there was a space for them just to get through their stuff really fast.
Yeah.
That's good news. That's good news.
Yeah. Well,
The
it's like
surface, really.
that 100 monkey syndrome, it's like when there's enough, I think it's only 1% of us need to have done the work, and then everybody's done it. It's like it's just, it's really quick.
Yeah. And I think now it's getting pushed so much to the surface that it's just right there to, shove over the ledge.
Denial just won't work any longer.
No, thank goodness for that. I'm so happy
No.
about that. And I know, there's a lot of humanity who aren't enjoying that part. And I get that because a lot of people haven't got the right tools. They don't know how to. And I know so many of my clients over the years have all wanted to change it, but didn't know how. So they were running a lot of shadow and they just didn't like it. They didn't want to be in it, but they didn't know how to change it. And I think that's a big thing, in generalizing it. I think that's a big part of why people don't, is because they don't know how to. But again, there's so many people out there now, practitioners, therapists, whoever, healers, whatever you want to call them, who are available for that now. Whereas, when I was a teenager and in my young 20s and wanting to do something on myself, I didn't know what, and there wasn't anyone around then. It was very scarce.
Didn't know, just got on with life, and all these feelings that were stuffed down.
Yeah.
I sort of remember the first time I realised that there was anything. I was listening to other people's stories and going, oh, well, my story's not really that bad,
Always someone worse, eh?
Oh, much worse.
Brings you back to perspective.
I'll just sit back here and not say a word until my balloon got popped, and then it just all spewed forward. It's like, I did not actually know that I was holding that much inside of me that I'd never expressed. I'd never felt like my story would be received.
Yes.
And I think that's a part of it too, is how will we be received if everybody knows how bad our shadow is?
Yeah.
How will we be received? It's like we've been so used to being separated, in our own little egg. What happens if I tell you how bad I've been?
Exactly.
You're gonna snub me, and then I'm gonna feel even worse.
Yeah, that's right. And we're expected to be nice all the time. And I think, at this moment now, we've got so sick and tired of so much bullshit. And I mean, in the sense of being lied to, so much deceit. And it's got to a point now where if somebody says something to me that's not actually, that's just la la land, I can't not say something to bring them into right now. And I just, we've got to a point, I think, where we don't tolerate it anymore.
No,
It's not
I'll
tolerable.
keep saying I'm turning into a grumpy old woman. And I think I am a grumpy old woman. I'm not just turning into it, I am. Because I can't take anything that's inauthentic anymore.
Yeah.
So if somebody tells me something they think I want to hear, I'm like, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I actually have got to the point I don't care whether they're going to like me or not.
No,
I
it's
don't
such
care
freedom.
anymore.
No, me
Yeah,
either.
there's such freedom in that.
Yeah.
And
Because I think you come to realise, as we do and we have, is that their perception of me is their thing. However I might be, it could be quite different to the way they see me.
Yeah.
And yet they've got this idea, and that's who I am to them and in their world. And I know that with close family and that too. It's like, well, you don't actually see who I am. So I have no desire now, none at all, to try and get them to see who I am, what I'm about.
no,
I don't give any more, because it's just a waste of time.
yeah.
I
Well,
haven't got the
that's what
desire
I've
to.
found from coming back home is my family hold me back where I was 20 years ago or more. It's like that's all, they don't see the person that I am now. And I'm like, really? But then I also realised I don't see them any different either. And
Well,
they
this.
they have grown too. So
Mhm.
it's like I need to revise my opinion or my thoughts and feelings about them to allow them their growth as well. I
Yes.
did. When I allow them their growth, they might allow me mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always a reflection.
It is always, always, always.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that need to be liked. We were talking about the fear of being ourselves because we might get rejected.
Yeah.
That's a program, and also a trauma response from childhood,
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
where if you did express yourself in a weird way or unacceptable way, particularly at school, I think it happens quite a bit. And also with our parents saying, be a good girl or be a good boy, and if you're not good, you'll get a smack, or, love was withheld from you, or you lost
Yes.
a friend, or, whatever it was,
Mhm.
punished at school, or you got the cane, or whatever it was. That's a program that we learned how to fit into society, because to be rejected in any social situation is like complete suicide. It's like you're no longer with the tribe, and if you're outside the tribe and you have to fend for yourself, you're going to be off in the jungle and you're going to die.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to survive by yourself. So it's like this survival instinct and a trauma response all wrapped up in this toxic package.
Yes.
So I think we're waking up from now, especially at our age. We've lived enough life and we've seen enough in our lives now to realize the trap that it is, and the lies that keep us believing it.
Yeah.
And that the world needs people like us to speak out, like anybody who is speaking out, anyone who has the bravery to speak out. The world needs that, because the truth needs to, it's time for truth now. It's time for truth.
It's time for truth. Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think more and more people are starting, because of they're starting to see the lies. Like, they've realized that people are dying because of the vaccine. They're realizing the lies that they've been told, that the vaccine was going to save everybody, was going to save the world, and it didn't. So the fact that people are now starting to listen to the truth, because they're going, hang on a minute, I was told this and that didn't happen. So they're starting to realize that they were lied to. What is the truth? And if there's no one out there speaking the truth and telling people, there's no truth to be found. They're going to be still asking the questions. So it's so important for us to not worry about what people think of us, and to be honest and say, this is what's going on. And not, you know, because I made the mistake a couple of years ago by going around telling people the truth, but not because they were asking for it, but because I thought it was my job to do that. That was not right either. That was, I created a toxic thing in my life where people were going, you're crazy, you know. If people come to me now and ask me, that is when I speak my truth. I don't put it on people anymore, because I learned my lesson that was not my job to do.
No.
You know, and yeah, so I think having that bravery, having that realization that it's not about being liked, it's about being ourselves. And when we give ourselves permission to be ourselves, we give others permission to be themselves too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Catch 22. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. I don't think I've got anything to add to that. It's like, yeah, so maybe it is about us grieving about not being ourselves. It's not acceptable to be ourselves and just being squashed into our little box. And, you know, we're trying to move out of our box, but the grief of not having that for all these years, you know, I just had my birthday a couple of days ago, and like 68 years of having to squash myself into somebody's perceived box.
Yes, exactly.
That's very sad, and it's really sad for so many other people on the planet that they have put themselves in that box and not realise that there's no box.
Exactly, the prison where there's no bars. And we just we have been holding ourselves back in many ways, and that is because we allowed that power to go. We gave our power and empowerment over to others. But I think for me, you know, Claudia, you were talking about it's time for the truth. I have no desire anymore to let the truth be anything. Like I have no desire to talk to anyone about it anymore, or to try and, you know, show, oh, look, there's a better way, or anything like that. I feel like the choices people have made have been made, and they now are walking those pathways, and that's all good. Whatever's happening is all good. And I feel what we tend to get caught up in is that we've got to help everybody else.
Yeah.
And now it's about helping self. And that again is a bit of a grief thing, in that I feel we get into this bit of grief around, I want to help, but I can't help. There were so many times within that whole 3 years that I couldn't, people, they weren't listening, nobody wanted to know. And you had to just recoil yourself back again and go, well, actually, I just need to shut up, get on with what I'm doing and what I believe my truth is for me, because everyone's truth's different. Mine might not be anything. We might have similar, you know, connection in the sense of what we might believe, but actually there's always going to be those parts that don't quite fit in what you might believe to what I might believe. So there's always those pockets. And I just have no desire now to try and wake anyone up.
Yeah.
I'm on a path that for me, it's about now coming back to me. We have to, I really believe this, that we've got to, have to, not the words I want to. The best thing for us to do now.
Time for us to do
yes. The best thing for us to do is to really be selfish and come back to us and self-fill, find out what you really want in this world and start acting that into play, because we need to create it. We've got to create our world now. It's not about sitting back trying to help everyone else. They've got their idea. Just leave them to it. They'll find it when they find it, you know?
Yeah, very true.
It's really that. But what I keep getting and what I'd like to do, and, you know, attempt to anyway, is that I keep getting told and keep hearing it's about now we need to cut the umbilical cords. The umbilical cords where the grief's been fed through still, the connections to the land and the old bodies, because it's about the old body. And you know, when somebody passes over, and we were talking about as part of our soul goes, and that's why we grieve, it's about recalling, bringing back that part of self, but also those umbilical cords have been right through our generations. It's like I'm seeing these lines or circle, actually, I keep seeing it in a circle of say me with my ancestors all around me, all the choices I've made over life, all the decisions I'd made, all the experiences I'd had, the countries I might have visited, every single thing that I've done has a cord connection to it. If we haven't shut them down, if we haven't disconnected, if we haven't brought it back to us in this moment right now. So that's that fragmented stuff again. And what I keep seeing, and it was actually Dragon that I feel was bringing this through, was about bringing, clearing the umbilical fluid, the umbilical cord that connects and keeps flowing that same emotional stuff through. And that it's still, even in passing, it's still sitting in the ether of those who have passed that we're still connecting to. You know, and it's just this big circle of round and round we go. We just keep going round and round and round. So do you feel up to doing, if I was to take us through a bit of something like that?
Yeah. And that is actually what we've been doing. Well, like yesterday when we were releasing that out of the land because of the new grid that's coming in, and we can't have the new grid come in while that old one's still
No, that's it.
we are still connected to it. And yes, definitely up to you leading us through something. But I'd also like to, while you're doing that, I'd like to use my clacking sticks because they are part of the healing of the land and the healing of us as well.
Yeah.
You okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely. All good.
Yeah.
Okay, so just if we just closing eyes and just bringing self and breathing into this moment. And just being really present with your body, feeling into your body. With each breath, allowing it to take you deeper and into a more calmer state, if not already. And just knowing that you're connected to this Papatuanuku, this Earth Mother, Gaia, this planet, and that your body is her body. So this work through this umbilical cord is also going to be a connection to her old body. Okay, so we're going to see now the ancestors, and you may not see things clearly, but have the feeling state within you that you're connecting now to all your ancestors on both sides of your families, mum and dad. If you've been adopted, it's like bringing all the family, and you're going to see them all connecting one after the other, after the other, after the other. And in between each one of these ancestors is a cord that is connecting you through right back into time. And parts of these people, these bodies, these beings are also part of your journeys that you've had in other life experiences. You're also now going to visualize and bring in all the times that you've made decisions in your life, the choices you've made, the experiences you've had. So you're also going to see beside each of these the connection that this has into all of your ancestors before you. There's the part of the land that you were born into. We're also going to bring that in, a sense of Papatuanuku. And again, you're going to see or sense the cords that are connecting you to all of this. And this old grid body of the planet. So seeing her old blueprint, the grid, and your connection to that also, the cord that connects you to it. So you may see this all in layers around you. I sort of keep getting a feeling of rings, like rings around you that are connected by cord. And then with your intention, we're going to just sever and cut the cord from you to your first parent, to your next parent. And that there is going to be like an elastic band that just absolutely retracts and recoils back in time, disconnecting between all of the layers of those ancestors. We're disconnecting this through all space and time and realities. You may feel a sensation in your body and the physical of that happening. And if you don't, that's okay too. Just know that you're doing this. And then you're going to see all the decisions that you've made around your life, looking back over your life, all of the people that have come into your circle. They've come in and they've moved out. But each one is now threaded to you. So just again, cutting the cord that connects you to all of your life, with all of those experiences, all of those people connected into it. And again, we're cutting this tie through and releasing it through all time, space, and realities. We're seeing all your soul group family, the essence of all of those ones who've shared time and space with us. And again, we're going to see them in this bubble or this ring around us that we're now going to cut the cord with them as well. Releasing this through all time, space, and reality. And you may now see the grid of the planet, and you may be like sitting, for me, I'm seeing myself above that, and there's a cord that connects right down into the core of that for me. And this old grid is now, it's time for it to leave. It is leaving, it's merging, and we have the new grid coming in, which again, we don't need to have cords connecting us to. We are it. So we're wanting to disconnect now from the old grid of the planet and to her body. And you may see this as quite a dense, for me, there's not a brightness to this body of land and mass and planet. It's like it's dying off. And I'm now cutting the cord. So cutting the cord that connects you to this planet, to this old grid, through all time, space, and reality. For me, I can feel a vibrancy in my body now through that, knowing that I'm connecting now through more to my higher being, my light body, my crystalline body that's in alignment with the new grid of the earth.
te kea tūia kaya tai ta. Te kea tūia kaya tai e te
With that old grid goes all of the old emotional pain, the old bodies that we carried around. That was the pain bodies, the dying body through all time, space, and reality. And just feel the newness within you. Just breathing deeply and allowing yourself to settle. Thanking all your ancestors, all your loved ones, Papa Tunuku, Earth Mother, for all the experiences you've had. And opening eyes when you're ready. Thank you, Bev. Awesome. Yeah. That's, I feel, got a rippling effect that's happening now through
all time and space.
hearing the water in our body, that fluid. Very cool.
Very
I really felt that in my body.
Felt it in your body? Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Yeah, cool. Oh, wow. So I think the main part of grief really is just, knowing that nothing is separate to us. We're not separated from those who pass from this physical realm. And that really it's a choice, I feel, as to whether we go into it or we don't, staying in our higher perspective. But I know not everyone can go into that place, which, for me makes it easier, which is good. There's still work going on, eh? Can feel that? Yeah. So what I mean, it's got this rippling effect that I feel is really going to start shifting. It's still shifting stuff.
Yeah, I can feel it's still going on.
It is.
In my body. That was profound for me. Also, a realization came up for me too when we were doing that there's grief in me with cutting the cords because I was adopted, that feeling of separation, like that, and separation anxiety and the abandonment issues that I've had through my life. Cutting the cords has always been a source of anxiety because I didn't feel when I was young that I had those connections. So, but knowing with the higher perspective that you're talking about, Mandy, that it's not what my anxiety is lying to me about it, and that it's not what I think that it is, and that I can let it go now, and that I can put a different meaning to what's going on. And I was feeling the cord cutting down around my belly area, and there was pains happening when I was cutting the cords, and chill went down my back of fear. And a sickness came over me too when the denseness went, because I could feel that denseness leaving me, and that it made me feel a little bit nauseous. Yeah, so that was profound for me, because it made me realize where a lot of that anxiety is coming from and the fear. And I thought I had worked on it, but obviously it wasn't. This is to a deeper level.
Yeah.
That I've released.
Well, just by what we pick up in the womb, you know, is huge. And then that mum's picked it up from her mother's womb and her mother before her, and so on. So, you know, it tends to just be passed on where it's time to stop.
Yeah.
All in their DNA.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
Yeah. And as human program, like it's expected that we do all that. We grieve and we, you know, we're sad and we get depressed and we age and die and, you know, all that story.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yes. Beautiful. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mandy, for following that.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. All right. Well,
yep.
I think that's where we'll leave it.
See you in a fortnight.
Yes.
Yeah. So beautiful to connect and have this chat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I feel blissy. All right. Well, lots of love. And thank you all to the viewers. Honestly, much love.
Love you, girls.
Bye.
See ya.